Is the minister aware that there has been anecdotal evidence that there has been greater roof damage in bauxite areas relative to the wind than in most other
Parliament
areas
Broadcasting
that had
Commission of
greater
Jamaica.
wind forces from the hurricane? That multiple roof loss have been attributed to weakened roofs due to the bauxite dust, acid rain, and the rusting that has been caused in these bauxite areas due to the dust. Is the minister also aware that this dust and acid rain have also affected agricultural output? And I would love to piggyback on the member from St. Anne who indicated that there's ownership of extreme numbers of acres, but is it possible to know the output from these entities? Because while it is, we may say, 7 acres under production, is it possible for us to know the output from these areas? Because it sounds as if many are just holding lands and not necessarily producing on these properties that they claim that they own. Finally, is the minister aware that there have been a cease on bauxite, what you call it, they used to call it dust money, in many communities, that the bauxite company has unilaterally decided not to pay the dust contribution? I heard the unfortunate number of $67 a day in South Manchester per family, and yet still was jealous of the fact when it compares to $0 a day in Northwest St. Catherine, a unilateral decision taken by the bauxite company. Finally, is the minister aware that the employment practices of these bauxite companies would have been deemed by any reasonable employee of the Ministry of Labor to be unfair practices, and also a focus on contracts and subcontracted labor into many of these plants, reducing what was once the benefits through labor and earning from the bauxite companies? Can the minister therefore provide information if there has been any engagement from any arm of government to have more fair practices within these areas? If I may be allowed, Minister, I'll also ask, is the minister aware that there has been many damage to houses due to blasting from bauxite mining, and also from the facilitation of bauxite mining? So many of these roads to the mines in their preparation have also caused for great damage, for which that's I'm wondering if he's aware. And further aware that the damage to these areas have been refused compensation, with the bauxite entities unwilling even to visit when informed by many of these communities, like Wandibolas, about damage to their houses due to blasting and other activities such as those. We would want to know if the minister is such aware.
Hello everyone, once again welcome back to my YouTube channel. Now, during the parliamentary sitting, Damion Crawford took the floor to question Floyd, the Minister of Agriculture and Mining in Jamaica. Now, Damion Crawford came prepared, and at this point you'll realize that he pressed the minister on issues of policy decisions, results, and accountability. Now, I believe all of us, we are aware of who Damion Crawford is and how raw he is. I mean, he's a guy who is majorly focused on making sure that, or rather ensuring that, the oppositions, they are doing their work. I mean, Damion Crawford is that one guy, that one weapon that is made to make sure that the opposition leader, they do what they promised people to do. Now, I'd love for you to watch this video up to the end, and then thereafter I'll be back with a few comments. But remember, if you're coming across my channel for the first time, if you're coming across my videos for the first time, and for my videos, don't forget to give the the thumbs up, and on my channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. So let's watch this video up to the end, and then I'll be back with a few comments.
All right, let me thank the members. I will start by saying I recognize this speaker gave a lot of latitude. I will try as far as possible to answer the questions posed, especially those that touch and concern directly the subjects that I had responded on. Some of the questions my colleague from Northwest said, Catherine, do not. But there are matters that you have raised that I would suggest that you put into writing and send to me. Right? So the matters in relation to damage, the matters in relation to dust, the matters in relation to claims around acid rain and claims around greater roof damage, those are things that I would suggest you pen to me so I can ask the teams to investigate, because those would require investigation. Again, I would not have gotten a brief about the employment practices, but what I do know that our bauxite company still provides some of the most stable employment in the country. And oftentimes when you go and tour these companies, you meet people who have been there for decades, quite frankly. And the bauxite industry is still the highest average paying sector in our country. So it still is critical, especially in relation to gainful employment. And then when you speak about the amount of independent contractors, those who do the mining, those who do the trucking, the ecosystem around bauxite mining is significant in relation to our economic activity. I will answer this directly, even though it was not directly raised, but I was unaware of any difficulty in having meetings with JBI, right? And that we will fix. So already prior to this, I had said in the last time we had a conversation around bauxite that I have asked, that I plan to convene a meeting with all the members of parliament from bauxite areas, and I've directed the JBI to do so. So when we have that meeting, which I expect to have within the next 2 weeks, because I also want to speak about the bauxite community development program that we're going into, that some of these issues will be raised and will be dealt with. The member from Southeast St. Anne, again, the consistency of payment in relation to the dust is not a matter that has come to me before, right? I would again ask seriously that you pen a letter to me around it. These things have to be recorded. Remember how our bauxite industry is. We are dealing with private companies. So it is good that the minister, to embark on these conversations, has some evidentiary backing to say that this is the situation. And I can't think of a higher person than the representative in the area to literally say these complaints have come in and you want this matter to be resolved immediately. You did ask, and it does fall within, about challenges in relation to enforcement. And there has been, I guess, challenges over the years. I think it's very hard to speak on administrations before. But what I will say is that now our focus is on enforcement, right? And that I do believe that in some of these areas, and I will go into it in responding to some of the things from the member from South Manchester, in some of these areas, we should have been doing better enforcement. And if we had been doing better enforcement, we would not be having some of these challenges. And these challenges, quite frankly, undermine the industry in total. So sometimes it may be seen that enforcement actually, as I have said to the players in the industry, enforcement helps the industry because the terms that have been set are for the protection of the greater good. And I think that is important. I will deal with the formal lease arrangements. So some of the questions are repeated, but I'll deal with it one time. The member from Northwest Manchester, again, some of the questions are outside the scope, but very good questions, right? Definitely, the issue of Hall Road was raised in terms of the amount of land, and the bauxite companies are to stick to a schedule in relation to preparing haul roads to bring bauxite. And I have said to the Jamaica Bauxite Institute and the commissioner who interacts that there has to be extenuating circumstances where that is not adhered to. Now, some of the companies have had some extenuated circumstances. I'll speak a little bit about that. But with that said, I will look into the matter of what is happening regarding maintenance on the public thoroughfare. Now, clearly that would cross over into another ministry, but having raised it, I think it is something worthy of looking into. Let me deal with the matter of lands in general. I have mandated that we are to do a full audit of the bauxite lands that are either have been mined and have been reclaimed but have not been handed back to government. Because there is to be another step, because those lands are to be returned to the Commissioner of Lands. So I've asked for an audit to be done on that one. Two, the lands that there are no plans to mine, that are still under the purview of the bauxite company, that they have already determined for multiple reasons that it would not be economical to mine those lands, that those lands again be handed back to the government so that we can put them to productive use. And that would be across all the areas, North, West St. Catherine, across all the areas, Southeast St. Anne. I had that discussion with the company in Southeast St. Anne. And that also means that where the land has not yet been handed back to the member from South Manchester, one of his questions, where the bauxite company is still in possession, but based on their mining plan, they are not going to reach to that area for another 5-10 years. And that area is occupied by farmers, or can be occupied by farmers, that they enter into lease arrangements with these farmers, or allow us through the Agri-Invest Corporation to enter into leases with the company, and then we can sublease to the farmers so that they have some tenureship. That's very, very important. That's something that we're pushing for this year, because it's critical, as was raised from the member from Southeast St. Anne, that these farmers have tenureship, that they can be able to go to the bank or go to their institutions and say that this is their property that they are farming. We have reaped some success over the last decade, I would say, where we've gotten the companies to not only give back some of the land, but to work with us to establish greenhouse clusters on some of these lands. And those clusters have gone very well. And under the BCDP, which we will outline to you, members of Parliament, we are looking to establish some more of those clusters. And sometimes strategically, as we did in content, we said to the bauxite company, do not restore this pit, because we're going to use this pit as a water catchment area. And then that makes sense, because it works in terms of helping the farmers and the greenhouse. The lack of access, let's talk about that. You had asked about the reason for delay. Member from Northwest Manchester, I don't remember what was the delay question in relation to, but so I have to be I wouldn't want to proffer a reason on behalf of the company for their delay. The approach that I have taken and that I have said to the Commissioner of Mines is that we're embarking now on a zero tolerance approach in relation to the time for certification, right? So, as you would have seen, those 70 hectares should have been rehabilitated and certified by the end of 2025, and we have already written to the company in that regard. It is for the company to say to us if there were extenuated circumstances that made that impossible, and then we would have to consider it, right? But I wouldn't want to to hazard any guesses in that regard. The member from South Manchester, he got the greatest latitude and made a lot of comments before he went to the questions. I will check in relation to whether the 25,000 is a one-off fee per hectare or whether that's an annual fee. I don't have that information at hand, but I will find out. The reality is, as difficult as it may sound, oftentimes the mines have not been fully depleted because of these issues. So it goes back to another thing that I've said to the companies. In keeping with your mining plan, even though you may not plan to go into an area for another 10 years, you may need to take steps to secure that land. Because a lot of these lands are privately owned now. They're not government owned, right? The government owned good bauxite land, most of the companies already have. So a lot of these lands are privately owned. So there's nothing stopping a private owner from building, from investing, which sends up the cost of acquisition. So sometimes when the companies are ready to go to acquire, they have real challenges with the private owners to acquire that property. And we do try to mediate as far as possible, but that's as far as we go. Because you do understand, it's two private individuals, company and the person, looking at what they think is in their best interest. The other thing that is a real issue, bauxite has different qualities. And in order to ensure that you're maximizing productivity and also profitability, there is some blending that happens. So sometimes you have to leave what is a lower grade bauxite until you reach another area with a higher grade bauxite and blend it to create what you're trying to get out, especially in relation to when you're processing alumina. With that said, I will ask the Commissioner of Mines to look into the length of time that these areas have remained unmined. And as was indicated in the answer, some of that work has started. In terms of a I spoke about the formal lease program, and we're going to move to that. In terms of a standardization of the claims, sometimes it's a bit challenging. I hear you. What we have standardized is the assessment through RADA, right? So RADA will provide that assessment support. But oftentimes, on both sides, oftentimes the farmer also wants to be able to negotiate, right? And the farmer also may have a view in relation to value. It's one of the areas, one of the things I had said in one of my presentations, we've started a process of training agricultural valuators. It's not something that we have a lot of. Somebody that is trained to value and has a certification to value agricultural loss, right? That would make it a little bit easier for people to agree. And as you know, having served in rural constituencies, farmers have very strong views about the value of their crops, right? But definitely in terms of the assessment, the standardization through RADA. The community council, and I'll come back to the community council, the resettlement, but you are right. And I'm happy you raised the point, because it does make the point that a lot of these issues were prior to this government, right? That a lot of the people were resettled under previous administrations and nothing were done to get the titles for them. We are fixing it. So the question was asked about a task force. There is a land titling committee that I've assigned Minister Witter to chair, and they meet, and the last meeting was held with members of the NLA, and we are now exploring whether we can use the systematic land titling to quickly resolve some of these issues. You have some issues as you raise, some estate issues, but the people are still occupying. Systematic can make it easier to treat with that. Now, clearly, there's a cost, and we are looking at maybe a shared model, because at the end of the day, we think it's in the country's interest for these people to get their titles. So we are having those discussions, and I will share more when we meet. I won't speak to the adequacy of the dust compensation. right? Normally my understanding is that a lot of this are agreements reached with the community councils, and a lot that you said, the member from South Manchester, speaks to one of the last points you made, that the community councils are not functioning as they should for a number of different reasons. So I had already asked for a study to be done on the community councils by JBI, and we are looking to see how we can revamp the community councils. The first thing is that MPs have to be included in the consultation framework. And the member from Northwest St. Catherine raised that as an issue that should be non-negotiable, right? So we are going to come with a revamp of the community council. We will again put it before the MPs to get some buy-in before we go to the companies. But the reality, and remember I grew up in a bauxite area where the community council was very strong, very active, but like most, they have waned over the years. And it's very, very important.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, once again, I have to appreciate you all for the love and support, for always choosing back to come and watch my content. I mean, if not for you, I wouldn't be here. So for that, I really appreciate and applaud you for that. Now, during these videos, I mean, I believe you've watched the video up to the end, and it's true that the opposition believes that the minister really has a lot to answer regarding this sector. And you'll understand that Damion's Crawford main angles was, are Jamaicans actually seeing the results of the ministry? Or is this just a talk? Because we've seen cases whereby there have been accusations that these people in power, they come to the media, they give us false information. They keep on telling us something is being done, work is being done, blah blah will happen, and all while at the ground, or rather at the back of the reality, nothing is really happening. So Damion Crawford was just questioning, like, are really the ministry really doing its work? Because Jamaicans, they need to see the results. Jamaicans don't need to be told stories. Now, under this, you'll understand that what the main purpose of Damion Crawford and his main challenges towards Floyd Green was that whether the government plan in the agricultural sector are producing real outcomes. I mean, it seems like there has been this routine of the public being fed bullshit, being fed informations that doesn't exist. And that's why I say they keep on just saying work is being done, but in reality, nothing is being done. Now, he also challenges Floyd Green on how resources are being managed. Are the resources being utilized, being used to benefit the people of Jamaica, the country of Jamaica, or these greedy politicians, these greedy leaders? And the reason as to why I love Damion Crawford is this guy is so bold, is so raw. Like, he doesn't sugarcoat anything. He comes out, he shoots the questions and every point the way they are. He doesn't really have to please anybody, or rather try to talk in a way that makes somebody comfortable while that person is oppressing the people of Jamaica. Now, Damion Crawford also challenges Floyd Green on whether the ministry is truly serving farmers and ordinary Jamaicans, not just pushing headlines. That's why I was saying, like, we've seen cases whereby these politicians, they come to the media, they feed people like lies. Like I've been saying, something that completely doesn't exist. Now, that was on Damion Crawford's side. And for instance, if you were to be Floyd Green being questioned, you had to, or rather you would step, or rather switch to your defensive mode. And in this case, these are what Floyd Green did answer. This is what he said in his defense. Now, as the question intensified, Floyd Green was pushed into a defensive position. And like I said, just like any other person, being questioned on something that they know they have been playing tricks on other people, you'll actually have to switch on a defensive mode. Now, his responses leaned heavily on broad explanations of government initiatives, references on the ongoing programs, and general assurances that work is being done. Now, sorry, if you've watched the video, you'll understand that Damion Crawford is not really interested in work is being done. What Damion Crawford needs is proof that work is being done, not stories. He has said that Jamaicans, they are out here in need of answers and not just stories. We don't need you to tell Jamaicans that work is being done. We need you as the Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining to tell us that this and this is being done while you provide proof. You don't just come and give Jamaicans stories. And that's why Damion Crawford questions really focused on one major theme. Is the ministry delivering what it's supposed to deliver, or it's just giving Jamaicans stories? Now, I believe that there are two major political parties in Jamaica, and at this point, you'll understand that this heated argument, Damion Crawford shooting his questions towards Floyd Green, really matters a lot. And I'll tell you why this really matters a lot. So for one, during this exchange of questions and answers, of which I feel like the answers were halfway, I mean the questions were halfway answered. Now, why this exchange matters? This moment isn't just about two politicians arguing. It highlights a bigger issue in Jamaican politics. And the bigger issue is that the politicians, they just come and feed the Jamaican stories, like work is being done when nothing is really being done. How accountable are the ministers when challenged? And are the government officials giving clear answers? Or are they avoiding accountability, responsibility with political language? Are they really avoiding that? Are they just using political language to trick us, to trick the Jamaicans? How accountable and how responsible are our leaders, the ones we've elected? Now, Damion Crawford is indeed the man, the leader that people, that Jamaicans are always in need. Now, I love to say this, or rather I'd love to give you a final takeaway for my viewers. Now, the parliamentary clash between Damion Crawford and Floyd Green clearly shows that Damion Crawford positioning himself as a strong watchdog. And that's why I said Damion Crawford always shoots his question. He doesn't really care if you'll be uncomfortable or not, as much as you give him answers, right answers, not stories. It's all good. Floyd Green under pressure to prove performance, and government being reminded that the parliament is not a rubber stamp. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, I have to appreciate you all for the love and support you've been showing unto me. Thank you so much for always choosing to come back and watch my content. And like I said, if not for you, I wouldn't be here. Now, what do you think about this video? What do you think about this heated exchange between Damion Crawford and Minister of Agriculture and Mining, Floyd Green? Did Floyd Green really answer the questions properly? Or did Damion Crawford expose real weakness? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and also I'd love for you to engage me in the comment section. Tell me what you think, if the content has been done correctly, or if you want me to do the content differently. So once again, I've been your host, Tyrell reactions. Remember, if you're coming across my channel, my videos for the first time, don't forget to like, subscribe, and also comment. To my returning subscribers, my returning viewers, I have to say thank you so much for your love and support. So guys, until we meet again in my next video, peace out and one love.